Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Food for Thought with Crown Royal. How's everybody doing out there tonight? Hopefully well. I'm coming to you live from Plug Studios. 13 days right outside the election. 13 days. Let's take care of some housekeeping first. Love, share this with everybody on every kind of platform. If you're interested in learning something, I actually changed the subject matter from the original topic that I wanted to discuss tonight because we are 13 days out of the probably the most crucial election in our lifetime. So I wanted to go over certain things that I feel as though is really valid. At this point, seriously, if you haven't voted already, because as we speak, 36 million people around the country has already voted. If you don't have your plan on how you're going to vote, or you don't know who you're going to vote for, you shit out of luck, because you should know by now. But if you still teetering, if somebody's still teetering, you try to figure out if you're going to get up and get out or not go at all. I'm here to actually try to tell you reasons why you need to get up and get out there and get a plan. Democracy is on the ballot. Now, if you actually are listening to different news outlets and doing some type of homework, or if you're a junkie like me, this subject, this term you see often. I see it almost every day. And I thought I was being creative when I thought it up, the title several days ago. And then since Monday, I've been seeing it on MSNBC and CNN and Fox. And former President Obama actually said it today in a speech in Philadelphia that democracy is on the ballot. So it kind of took away my shine. But that's cool. That just means great minds think alike, and we are on the same page because we know how serious this thing is. And it is serious. There's no If anybody has watched any of my shows, I know I can be a little bit animated sometimes, but I would say, and hopefully everybody else understands, that I'm not here for hyperbole. I'm not here for over the top. When I say something is vital, I mean that. And maybe you don't actually know how vital it is, but I'm going to try to push the point to you tonight. George Santayana once said that if you don't know your history, you deem to repeat it. And I know it's at this point because that was way back in the 19th century. It's kind of like a cliche. But sometimes when things are actually a cliche and they actually stand the test of time, is because they ultimately actually come true. Everything is cyclical in life, and especially in politics. Normally, what happens is if a party is actually in place for 8 years, usually the next party takes over for the next 4 years because people always want to change. The same thing with a president is actually in power and they have all chambers of the Senate and the Congress of the same party. Usually during the midterms elections, it flips because it gives some type of balance. Those were the days of old. This day we living in today, right now in 2020, let's think about it. 2020 has been rough with everything that's going on. This is a year of the ages. Coronavirus, over 200,000 souls lost, a lot of people unemployed, a lot of people facing eviction. The economy has been tanking. And then on top of that, we're dealing with a crazy election that can just go anywhere. And not even to mention all the social injustice and unrest. But it's been times like this before in America. And I want to actually compare two times together, where we at right now to somewhere in the past. 150 some odd years ago, we had a transitional president named Abraham Lincoln. 12 years ago, we had a transitional president named Barack Obama. Now, you may say, how can we compare the two? Well, because let me start with Abraham Lincoln. We know Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and it was all based on a civil war. But what a lot of people don't know is a lot of times when you have a transitional figure, what follows them actually tries to counteract a lot of things that they actually accomplish. Now, in this case, Abraham Lincoln had picked Andrew Johnson to be his vice president. Johnson wasn't his vice president the first term, but he picked him in the second term because he was a Southern Democrat and one of the only Southern Democrats that was in Congress that didn't actually talk about separation and go with the Confederacy. So what Lincoln did was he brought Johnson on board, who, even though he was in a different party, he was a Democrat and Lincoln was a Republican, he brought him on to try to heal the nation. Sounds familiar? So even though in a lot of cases they divided on their ideologies, it was the fact that whereas though he was trying to reach out to the South and try to bring everybody back together right after the Civil War. What America, nobody could actually foresee is the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Now, little tidbit on that situation. We know about the assassination, John Wilkes Booth killing him and shooting him in the theater, but a lot of people don't know that was a hit job. It wasn't just Abraham Lincoln that was supposed to be assassinated. John Wilkes Booth and his co-conspirators were set up to actually kill everybody in the line of secession because they were loyal to the Confederacy. They were supposed to kill Lincoln, Johnson, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of War, and this was all set up, and everybody had their own leg or their position to do. The only one that was successful was Booth. So Johnson now becomes president. Now this changes the course of history totally because, for one, Johnson, even though he didn't fight for the Confederacy and wanted the Union, he still was a racist. He was a slave owner, but he gave up his slaves in order to run on the ticket with Lincoln, and only because he hated the slave owners more than he hated slaves, because he was brought up poor. So when he took office, he counteracted a lot of things that were supposed to happen. For one, he took away all the 40 acres and the mule. He took all the actual 40 acres and a mule that was supposed to be sent into these former slaves. That was actually, which I spoke in my other show. Also, he was real chummy with the Confederacy. He actually pardoned all the Confederate generals that were actually traitors. Sound familiar? Something today. Chummy with racists, white supremacists. In all actuality, because of Johnson, the Ku Klux Klan was actually created. And he was the first president in history to actually be impeached because He tried to subsede everything what the Congress. He tried to bring the Confederate States back in to power with the Union without any type of reconstruction. We only could thank Johnson for one thing. Because he was so racist and because he went against the Congress so much, they actually created the 14th Amendment that basically gave black men the right to vote, and and said nobody could be discriminated against. We can thank Johnson for that. And the only reason why he did get impeached, but he didn't get removed by because it passed by one vote, and supposedly he paid off the senators to actually vote to keep him in office, but he never got a second term. He didn't even get nominated for a second term. Ulysses S. Grant was nominated by the Democrats. I bring up Johnson only because sometimes it's a different situation because he took over because of Lincoln's death, but he was totally opposite. Now let's go to the Obama situation. Because of Obama in the 8 years, we got Donald Trump. And I can honestly say that because a lot of people, it was reactionary to the first black president of the United States. And at this point right now today, I would say, well, look at it. We are 1,370 days under siege by a failed casino owner. I'm going to tell you this: democracy is on the ballot. Freedom is on the ballot. You have 13 days left to decide if you want this country to look like it did before the 1370 days of Trump. And I usually wouldn't come on here and I don't like to spit my own personal opinion because you know what? Everybody has the right to vote, even though they try to suppress the shit from us. But I don't ever try to say I tell people to vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. But ultimately, if you don't actually rescind the application of the current person that's occupying the people's place, the people's house, you are in some deep shit because you can't go 4 more years with this. We won't resemble anything. Look at where we at in 3 years. In just 3 years of this. It's a lot of things that may be irreconcilable for a lot of times, especially when it comes to the Supreme Court and all the district judges that's around the country right now that got lifetime appointments through this administration. We can't change that. That's done. That's lost. But we can't bow down to fascism. And I'm telling you, in all actuality, that's where we at this point. And y'all probably saying fascism. Fascism is a far right political thoughts of where as though it's all based on nationalism and it's just almost like a autocrat, whereas though it's like one ruler. And you probably sitting there and saying, not in America. Yeah, in America. I'm gonna compare it to it because some time ago in the early 19th century, we had Germany. Germany was a free democratic country just like America. And then this guy named Hitler came around, and in just a matter of 2 different acts that set in place. One was the Free Reich Act, and then after that, just a couple days ago later, it was the Enabling Act in 1933. These acts actually, the first one put all civil liberties and everybody's free single thought and freedoms were now on hold and taken away. And then by the Enabling Act, it actually put the Third Reich government in power. So basically, Hitler and the German government transformed to just a dictatorship in a matter of a small amount of time. In just a matter of a few years, it led up to that. And what happened was because of the takeover came just like what you see here right now. How's it first start? It starts with the media. How much? Why? Because the media gets your message out. Why do we always everything for the last 3, 4, 5 years? Everything is fake news. Nothing is real, right? So you don't trust the media. You don't trust the media about what nothing to say what's really going on. There's no transparency. Come on. He wouldn't even have the press secretary give a daily press briefing to the press in the nation. That's never happened. All these norms that we usually had, and we say we were the greatest country ever. Do you really think the rest of the world thinks that now? It's only taken less than 4 years for one person's reign to actually just switch everything. We don't care that he paid off a stripper. We don't care that he said grab her by the pussy. We don't care that he's disrespectful to any woman he comes in contact with. We don't care if he's a racist. I'm saying we don't care in a sense where as though I know a lot of us care, but his supporters don't care. And it doesn't matter what he says, that it surprises us. He says so much shit that's so negative that is numb. I found out today that he has money in a Chinese bank account. And the money was deposited in a Chinese bank account 3 days after he took office, $17.5 million. 3 days after he took office. And he actually took $15 million in cash from that account. And they found out that $17.5 million was the most money deposited in that account over 5 years combined. But that money got there 3 days after he took office. And guess what? We numb to it. Democracy is on the ballot. I'm afraid if everybody don't actually see that you have to get out there and actually exercise your right and get this fool out of office. And I'm not just talking him. Me, myself, I'm into this thing. But now I will hope that a lot of us see over this past year, 2020, that a lot of us has woken up our eyes and seen that we have to make a difference in our community. And the only way you can do it is by actually putting yourself in a position to vote down ballot, pay attention to your local elections. Here in Delaware, we have a whole slew of things that is on the ballot this year. We had not only just the president, we have the governor, lieutenant governor, and we have a senator. And not even to mention, we have a lot of state in our different districts, state senators that we have up. And these are things that's very important. Not even to mention, commissioners, the levy court. It's a whole bunch of things that like you really need to be educated on to see how it actually affects you. Where do you want us to look like in 2021? What is it that you want? What is going to be best for the society as a whole? And this is to Republicans, Independents, Democrats, period. America is at a crossroads. And if we don't see from the deaths of all these people with coronavirus, and not actually having any type of structural plan. Just today, 39 states in the DC is have it's been a third wave, and I don't even know why we're talking about a third wave, because I'm thinking it's the same wave it's always been. We did have some, I think it's just been popping up in different sections of the country, but now 39 states, including the state of Delaware that I live in, and DC, have double digit positives in the last 2 weeks. At the same time, the government, our government, is sitting on $9 billion that was set aside in the CARES Act that was passed in March for testing. So the states are still struggling on trying to get testings and fast, rapid testings and things of that nature, when the government is sitting on $9 billion of that is supposed to be for aid for testing, and they haven't handed it out. Because why? More testing, the more positives. This is insulting. You should be insulted. How are you a superpower? How are you supposed to be the greatest nation in the world, and you can't even test your people, or you can't even make sure your people are safe? You know, the post office wanted to send every person in America several masks. They had it all ready to go. Whoever they send their mail to, they were going to send several masks to every household. This administration stopped that. But this is democracy. Some of them don't think it's a democracy anymore. Republican Senator from Utah, Mike Lee, stated, "This is not a democracy, it's a republic." Usually people that say that, you know where that is taught, that's said, that's when people that are in a minority actually take power over the majority of people in a certain country. Republican governor candidate in Washington, D.C. this year, that's coming up for election in a couple weeks, Lauren Culp, she stated that people that say a democracy, that Mao Zedong and Mikhail Gorbachev actually said that they led democracies, which actually led to socialism, that actually formed communism. They're basically trying to say that if you are for democracy and you are for everybody having the right to vote and everybody having a say in society, that you're basically a socialist. This is their mentality. I don't make this shit up. Another issue that's on the ballot with because of democracy. These are key points that hits us. Number one, Obamacare is on the ballot. Actually, Obamacare, the government insurance, is actually in the Supreme Court, and it'll be up on the Supreme Court. They will be hearing open arguments on trying to dismantle it for the 60th something time in the last 10 years. On November 10th, just 7 days after the election. Why you think they trying to get Barrett through? Now, how crucial is people having this? People it's 20 million people on it, and I could attest this. At one point, I was on Obamacare at one point over these last 10 years, and I'm going to tell you, it was a great option for me because of my previous. I have high blood pressure. I have diabetes. I take 7 pills a day to stay alive without actually at the point where though I had insurance lapse by switching to another job, and it took 90 days, or then I needed it, and it kept me alive. And I'm pretty sure it's very positive for a lot of other people that didn't have any other options. That's just one thing that this is something that we need to look forward to try to keep. Another thing is gerrymandering. And I'm going to kind of go deep on certain things. Like with gerrymandering. Now gerrymandering is actually when they cut up your district, and it actually puts people in a certain district and takes away your actual voting power. And a lot of states that's covered by Republicans, they tend to put a lot of African American votes and combine them into um, higher Republican districts. So whereas, like for instance, in North Carolina A&T, which is a historically black college, and you have in the area around North Carolina A&T is a very high black population, but it's actually sitting in two Republican districts. They split it. So whereas though the black people's vote is basically neutralized. I'll get to that, Karen. Hi, Karen. Hey, Deidre. I'll get to that. Um, Another thing, I'm going to answer questions at the end. I'm gonna run through it. Another thing that's actually something that is being proposed in the Biden Harris um, agenda is abolishing marijuana as a federal crime, and anybody that actually has been arrested or been actually jailed for marijuana, it basically kind of expunging your record and making it where as though you don't actually have to, if that's something that you got locked up for and did time for, it's something that you would not have to put on a job application. And then moving forward, actually on a federal level, and just abolishing it as being a crime. And that's crucial because a lot of small misdemeanors and things since '94 with the war on drugs, or fake ass war on drugs, has a lot to do with marijuana. Not even to mention, there's so many states that have marijuana that's legal, or you can at least get a medical marijuana. So it's hypocritical at this point. Climate change is another thing that's a Biden Harris. They want to put $2 trillion in climate change, and we know that this is real and this is important for the existence moving forward in our country. Look at all the forest fires. Let's look at the floods and the hurricanes. Let's look at the weather just in all different. It was an earthquake in fucking North Carolina a few weeks ago. It was an earthquake. And one of the biggest things that I am definitely for, and it will help a lot of our people, is the $15 minimum wage. Now, to some people, that may not be a big deal because it may be a lot of us that already make $15 or make over $15. But I'm here to tell you, especially in the profession that I am in, the service profession and working in restaurants, it's plenty of people that don't make that. Today, DC is the only state. Well, it's not even state, I'm sorry. DC is the only territory that has a $15 minimum wage. California, 12, Arizona, 12. But 21 states in the union at this day, right now in 2020, has a minimum wage of the federal minimum wage of $7.25. Majority, everybody down south. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi. Can you imagine? 725 is what these people make. And I'm gonna tell you that from a personal situation. Several years ago, before say about 8 years ago, I was one of those people. I worked 2 jobs at 725 to make ends meet before I got an opportunity and at a company and became a cook and actually became a chef. But 8, 9 years ago, I was one of those people that had to work like that. You know, they often say that the economy, well, before COVID, the economy was good because people were working and it was a lot of people and it was a lot of jobs. But they don't actually look and see how people are actually underemployed. People working 2 jobs or 2 jobs and they doing a DoorDash or in a Lyft to make it because they only making $7, $8 an hour. Look at wherever you at in your state and look and see what your minimum wage is. And this is all about empathy, people, because yeah, I have roles above that now, but it's a lot of people that's living below the poverty rate. It's over 38.1 million people right now in the last statistics before the pandemic. This was before the pandemic. That was living underneath the poverty line. The poverty line is basically $16,000 a year. A little over $16,000 a year. Basically, you're making $33 a day. Can you imagine? This may not be you, but this could be you. What they say, by the grace of God could go I. Basically, somebody's Karen, you would know that, right? By the grace of God to go I, because you that's that biblical shit. Basically meaning without divine intervention, this could have been me. And I think a lot of times when it comes to the minimum wage and actually when we talk about finances in general, we have to actually stop using the capitalistic thought pattern of, well, I'm doing good, so that's all that matters. Because guess what? The weakest link, we only as strong as our weakest link. And I'm talking about we when I talk about black people as a community as a whole. So, especially because a majority of us work in the service industry. We do the cooking, we do the cleaning, we do the security, we work in the hotels, the restaurants, the golf club, and things like that. When you have a minimum wage, that's larger than you are basically propelling people into being somewhat close to a minimum wage. Into the middle class. Close to it. Only close to it. Because $15 an hour on full time, it gets to about $31,000 a year. But compared to making $15,000, you doubling your money. And then what happens when if that comes fruition? You got less people. You got more people put into the system because They paying more taxes because they're making more money. So whereas though the tax base in that community goes up, so what happens? You have better schooling, you have better services in your community because crime goes down. Why? Because people have jobs and they're making a better wage, so they're not trying to bust nobody over the head. They're not trying to take anything. See, you got better when you got better education because you got a better tax base, then your children are being better educated and you're doing better. And majority of people just want to make an honest wage. They go to work and they work hard and they just want to make an honest wage. This is something that can be passed with a stroke of a pen. Transgender rights is on the ballot with just a stroke of the pen. Because Trump took them away with a stroke of a pen with an executive order. Just Biden could do the same thing and get transgenders right back into the military with a stroke of a pen. Our immigration laws can be retroactive, taken back with just a strike of a pen. All these things are on the ballot. All these things about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are on the ballot in just 13 days. Hopefully, everybody, if you have early voting, I hope you've been out there. But if you know somebody that's on the fence and doesn't actually know if they want to vote or don't want to care about voting, explain to them. And I'm not going to use the argument that our people died for. Our people died for every fucking thing, not just to vote. But our people did die for it. The craziest thing is we not even so far from removed. I thought about this today. I'm 47 years old. I was born in 1973. The Voting Rights Act took place in 1965. My mother was born in 1956. So when my mother was born, black people still couldn't vote. Really. That's why I called my mother today to make sure she had her voting plan together. And she said, shit, I already done voted. Because I found out in New Jersey, and this is important for people that live in New Jersey, that you can go and vote at a polling place, but it's a provisional ballot. And then they're going to verify if you didn't actually send a mail-in ballot first. But basically, all the ballots in New Jersey have been mailed out to all the registered voters, and you need to return that specific ballot. She said I already mailed mine back, and they already sent me a I voted sticker. I'm back. I'm good. That's reliable. That's that black women, because you know black women go and vote. She said I'm already. Same different in Pennsylvania, because we do that. We in the same like area, this tri-state area. If you sending back your ballot in Pennsylvania, make sure when you fill out your ballot, you put it inside that little small translucent secrecy ballot first, and then put it in your big envelope, and then sign it. If you don't put it in that little envelope first and you mail it off, it's invalid. I'm just giving everybody a little bit of keys to look at it, only because it's a lot of misinformation going out there about the vote. I would tell you the Senate Intelligence report from the 2016 election basically stated that African Americans was the main target of misinformation online by Russian bots and by fake actors on Facebook and all social media. It's always plenty of things that they're trying to do to actually send you to the wrong precinct, or have say something's closed or this, that, and other, or you have to do this. The only true way you need to know about what you got to do in your specific area, you can just go to ivote.org and look up your specific state and figure out where you need to go, and what you need, the procedures is if you do have a mail-in ballot, to be the safe thing to do. Don't listen to anybody, or anything like that. Do your homework yourself. I know here in Delaware, we really, unless you got requested a ballot, there is no really early voting. So me, my voting place is 2 blocks away from my house. I'm making a day. I'm making a day of it. It's going to be a beautiful day for me because it's going to be the first election that all three of my sons are going to be able to vote. So I'm doing my part. Whereas though, for me, my next generation, we going to go put our mask on and we going to go all vote together as a family. That's my contribution to black men voting. Now, question Karen brought up: what do I think about black people who vote for Trump? It's about seven. I don't. I think most of the time, black people that vote for a Republican, they have their own. They vote their pocketbooks. They doing a little bit well, and they vote their tax bracket. Some other ones that voted is because they like that he's ignorant. They like his macho, manly thing, and they projectly. And let's be honest, it's a lot of men, and specifically a lot of black men, that have issues with women and don't know how to talk to them or treat them. But when you talk about somebody like who's that, 50 Cent, saying he's going to vote for Trump or whatever like that because he wants about his tax bracket. Anybody that would vote for anybody, in my ideal, that is a member of the Republican Party and looks like me, that's because of their personal gain. Because how can you actually vote or back a candidate that's based on just putting your people's vote to the side and suppressing your people's vote? That's a person. And also, Karen, I got to look at it like this. Everybody wasn't brought up like you or me and didn't come from our certain communities. So it's some people that's brought up and they are just Republicans, or because they're conservatives. It's a lot of people in the black community that's just conservative in general. A lot, just like, I mean, you deep into the church, is a lot of religious people that are very conservative, and especially if people have a small business or things like that, they always believe that a Republican is always good for the business person and things like that. Now, at this point with this dude, you about self and you don't care about your people, straight up. Somebody else can give me, if it's a supporter of him and say that you're not just worrying about yourself and you don't think about your people as a whole, with him being actually a white supremacist, and all his policies is basically degrading and taken away from your community, you about self. You on that capitalism shit. You don't care about your people. And I will argue that with anybody. I can have a discussion with a person about being a Republican because it's a true Republican with the tenets of being maybe physically or socially conservative. Well, I can't get with social conservatism, but being fiscally conservative and things of that nature. Now, we can have that conversation. I'm totally disagree with you, but they are valid points. But for this dude, he ain't got no plan for shit. So I can't respect no black person that votes for him. But they had that right. But they're a fucking idiot, in my opinion. But those are just main things that hit home directly to the black community. Gerrymandering, the ACL, but basically Obamacare, legalization, possible legalization of marijuana and getting throwing out marijuana cases and expunging, climate change, and the minimum wage. He's all about the rich and not anyone else, not the poor. Well, see, this is the whole misconception that I can answer that. People always think that they can be rich, especially poor white people. They think they can actually be Trump. And the truth of the matter is, let me explain something to everybody. That I'm gonna hit y'all on some game if y'all don't actually know. All right, the tax increase that if you seen these little commercials when he said talk about Biden, so always talked about, oh no, I'm going to raise it. I'm not. Your taxes ain't going down; they're going up. He was talking about corporations, and he was taking the corporations tax rate from 10 back to 28. Before getting rid of all the Trump tax cuts. By pushing it back to 28, that's going to pay for the $2 trillion with the millions of jobs for the green the climate change deal. But he was also, if you make more than $400,000 a year, those people's taxes are going up. Let me explain something to you. Less than 1% of America makes over $400,000 a year. If you know somebody personally that makes more than $400,000 a year, or if you are a person that's watching right now and you're making more than $400,000 a year, God bless you. You are on the top 1%. Because literally 1% of the nation makes over $350,000 a year. So it's less. So these are all fallacies that stop worrying about a tax bracket that you don't belong to. And I think that's what a lot of people have a problem with, especially with living in this capitalist society. We always have the belief that if we don't make this one day, at this point, one day we were. So I want the shit to be low. So when I get there, my taxes is going to be low. But you're probably never going to get there. So why do you give a shit? That's all I'm saying. Sorry about that. I got to keep a timer on myself or I keep on going forever. But that's the whole misconception. Let's worry about things that actually comes to us, that concerns us. I don't give a fuck about a $400,000 tax hike to people. The only reason why I care about that is because that tax revenue is actually going to be put back in some communities and actually help some social plans. I'm worried about a minimum wage for our people. For working people. I'm worried about the Obamacare still being there, especially in the pandemic, because a lot of people is out of work. And they don't, and a lot of jobs aren't covering people's insurance anymore. These are all real issues. I don't need to deal with the cosmetic ones. Cosmetically, we already screwed up in a lot of cases. Let's deal with the real stuff. Now, with that said, that's going to be my soapbox for the night. I appreciate everybody. Deidre, as always, you always have something good to add. Karen, thanks for the questions. 13 days out. If you didn't go already or you don't have a plan, get your plan together. On a lighter note, tomorrow, you'll get double decker or double deuce of me. Behind closed doors will be back tomorrow with my beautiful co-host Latoya Growth. We've been on hiatus for the last 6, 8 weeks or whatever. I don't even know. I've been doing this, so I ain't been on hiatus. But if you are a fan of some having nice little conversations about relationships and how they go and different things that we discuss about people that we don't discuss in front of everybody, we talk about behind closed doors and how when people actually get real. It's a fun show. It's totally different from the atmosphere that I do right here. I am generally really not serious at all. And actually tomorrow's topic is going to be interesting because it's going to be it's not me, it's you. And we talk about deciding to leave a relationship and moving on when it's not you, it's not me, it's you. It's going to be very interesting because a lot of people often think when somebody leaves them or want to break up, they want to be with somebody else. We're going to look at it as whereas though I don't want anybody else. I just don't want to be with you. And how do you handle that? I'm saying it's true. So tune in tomorrow at 8 o'clock for that. It should be fun and recurring every Thursday. I'll still be doing food for thought at least through the election for the next few weeks, and then I'm probably going to hiatus so we can just focus on BCD. But I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. And if you ain't watching it live, at least you can send it to somebody else or watch it later and try to pass it on. And do your part. Get your cousins, your nephew, or whoever. Like I'm getting my people. Get them to the polls. Until then, class dismissed.